What's going on, everybody? So today's topic is going to be redefining male purpose and identity. Men have never been valued just simply for being humans. Men have always been valued by their ability to contribute to society and to the benefit of the female gender. For centuries, men have been taught that their purpose in life is to be physically attractive, get a good paying job, get married, and have children. Fast forward to the current time, and men are still being taught from the time they are boys all the way up into adulthood that in order to hold value as a man, he must be physically attractive, have a good paying job, get married, and have children. The willingness and dedication to obtain all of these attributes, of course, lead him to being an ideal candidate for female selection. In short, he is making himself useful to women. When men do not meet the criteria mentioned, they are often shamed for it. I'm sure at one point in our life we have all met or known a decent-looking man with a good career, no kids, and no history of any serious long-term relationships or marriages with women. It's rare, but most of us have known at least one of these men in our lifetime. These men are often accused of being gay, of having psychological issues that prevented them from establishing and maintaining any serious romantic relationships with women. An example would be something to the effect of, "Girl, you mean to tell me he is good looking, has a good job, he's straight, never been married, and has no kids? He must be crazy or something. Something ain't right with him." Or, of course, he's accused of being selfish. Now, the assumption of him being selfish happens after it is proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he is heterosexual and he's not crazy. I always thought it was funny how a straight man who lives his life solely for himself is considered selfish by most people. Women, on the other hand, have always been valued just for being a human being. Regardless if a woman is rich, poor, attractive, ugly, or even a contributing member to society, they will always be valued and respected as a human being. Now, the level of this respect may vary based on her physical attractiveness. Example of this, good-looking women might get the door held open for them a little more often than the not-so-good-looking women. But it's extremely rare for a woman, regardless of how she looks, to be viewed as subhuman and treated as such. In the present day, women are being encouraged to break free of their traditional gender roles. The days of women being a stay-at-home mom and wife are slowly but surely coming to an end. Women are entering the workforce in much larger numbers. In the past 68 years, women went from representing 32.7% of America's workforce to 56.8%. Women now literally account for over half of America's workforce. Women are divorcing their husbands in significantly larger numbers. Roughly 50% of all marriages end in divorce, and of that 50%, roughly 74% of those divorces are initiated by the wife. Women make up the majority of single parents. Upon divorce, women obtain full custody of their children roughly 79% of the time, leaving the father to spend time with his children only a couple times a month. And in the case of unwed parents, the chances of a man getting full custody of his children are even slimmer. Now, while this is happening, you rarely, if ever, hear women being shamed for or discouraged from entering a career, filing for divorce, or getting custody of the kids. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm presenting these statistics. Because, like mentioned before, men have always been valued by their ability to obtain three titles: their job title, husband, and father. Now that men are having to compete with women for these titles, men are losing their sense of purpose and identity. Now, the problem with this is, men are still being taught to assume their traditional gender roles to this day. We are still taught that we must be physically attractive, a provider, a protector, and that we must work hard and make sacrifices not for ourselves, but for everyone else first, women in particular. We must always put our wants and needs at the very bottom of the list. So we have a generation of men that are told in order to hold value as a man, he must obtain certain titles and assume specific gender roles, while simultaneously having to compete with women for those titles, even though women hold value as a human, regardless of any titles they may or may not acquire. This, in my opinion, is the number one cause of suicide in men. Men account for 75.1% of all suicides in present-day America, which is nearly double what it was since the start of feminism in the early 1900s. Now, I'm not saying women need to get back to the kitchen or forfeit their right to vote. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, if women want to break free of their traditional gender roles enter the workforce, and take on roles that have always been historically and traditionally male, then women need to redefine male purpose and identity. And I put this responsibility on women because men are wired to behave and live a certain way in order to make himself an ideal candidate for female selection. Women still determine what criteria a man must meet in order to be an ideal candidate for marriage, reproduction, and just to simply hold value as a human. To this day, women still are gravitating towards men who assume, or at least are willing to assume, their traditional gender roles as, the good-looking protector, provider, while they get to abandon all of their traditional gender roles. So we need more career-oriented women who want to leave the proverbial kitchen to be okay with the idea of having a stay-at-home husband/father. We need more women to be okay with the idea of dating and marrying a man that isn't 6'5" with chiseled abs. We need more women to teach their sons the same exact thing they would teach their daughters, that you don't have to dedicate your life to becoming a utility to everyone around you and to put everyone's needs and wants before your own. To do things not because you should do it and it's what everyone expects of you, but because you want to do it and it's what would make you happy. If women don't start redefining male purpose, worth, and identity, we're going to have generations of men who will grow up either resenting women or end up committing suicide. And contrary to popular belief, this is a women's issue, because these men are the men that will raise the next generation of men to resent and distrust women. Those boys that are under the influence of a father that has come to resent and distrust women are going to grow up to be the men that your daughters will have to choose from for husbands and fathers to the future generations of men and women. It'll turn into a vicious and incredibly toxic cycle. We can't have generations of men who either hate women or decide they would rather fucking kill themselves than to live in a world where they feel as though they are nothing more than a disposable utility. Women, with equality of rights comes equality of duty and responsibility. If you want the same rights as a man and want to break free of your gender roles, then you need to start redefining the ideal male candidate and start taking some of the load off of men's shoulders. Volunteer to work full-time and pay the bills while he stays at home with the kids and watches reruns of Paw Patrol in his pajamas. Forfeit a little bit of that family court privilege and start encouraging women to let fathers get full custody and to pay him child support. Start taking on some of these traditionally male jobs that most men hate fucking doing, i.e. petroleum engineering, electrician, plumber, coal mining, auto mechanic, etc. Stop expecting a man to be 6'5", muscular, and make $100,000 a year. Stop shaming men for doing the things that women have been praised for doing and even encouraged to do. And most of all, stop measuring a man's worth on how much of a utility he is willing to make himself for you. A man is a human fucking being with thoughts, feelings, and worth outside of the house he is financially capable of financing for you. It's like Bill Burr said, you can't just treat a man's life like it's a buffet. You can't examine his gender roles and the privileges that might come with his gender roles. Take only the privileges while assuming none of the not-so-good aspects. A perfect example of this is women getting the right to vote without legally being obligated to register for the draft, and then fighting the possibility of having to start registering for the draft whenever Congress so much as discusses it. It seems like most women want to have their cake and eat it. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. Being a man isn't what it's cracked out to be. I think women, to some degree or another, are figuring this out, but can't turn back now because they have already dug a hole too deep for themselves. A woman's ego will never allow her to admit that she was wrong in assuming that a man's life is paradise and gladly step back into her traditional gender roles. Instead, they will continue to treat men's life like the Golden Corral and only put what they like on their plate. The best thing for women to do now is to figure out how to fix things while moving forward. If not, then I hate to see what the future generations of men look like. I can assure you it will not be pretty. Well, that's all I got to say for today. Like, subscribe, share, do what you gotta do. I don't give a shit. Alright, thanks for listening. Peace.